Welcome to another episode of This is Bet on TCREG. We are back and better than ever. And today I am here with the phenomenal, outstanding, remarkable Chase Sloan. And let's get into the conversation today.
Before we get into the conversation, I'm here with the diligent, Mr. Consistent, the man of the hour, Mr. Randy and Bugay. It is such a great day.
It is. It truly is.
Man, we got a lot to talk about.
For real.
And one of the things that we always like to share about this show is that we are here to give you the tangible tools that you need to make decisions, right? We want to break down the science of success, the science of wealth, and give you guys some actionable homework so that we can move from concept to application. So, Randy, should we start?
Yes, let's get into it. Let's get into it.
You know, I always got to start with a story time.
Tell your story, Chase.
I got to tell my story, right? So before we
ready.
get started, I remember this story that a mentor once shared with me. And he was talking about this dad, right? And his dad had his son, and during the week, he told his son, hey, son, on the weekend, me and you, we're going to go out, we're going to play, going to go play to the playground, all those things. If you guys have a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, you know the amount of energy they have. So, of course, children don't forget anything. Saturday comes, dad is already awake, right? He's like trying to drink his coffee, read the newspaper and stuff like that. But the son comes down and he's like, Dad, it's Saturday. I want to go play. But dad's still kind of waking up, so he's kind of like, what can I do? So since he's reading the paper, he notices one of the pages, there's the map of the world. And so he says, you know what, son, I'll tell you what. Takes the paper, he starts tearing it into pieces. He said, let's play a game. Let's do a puzzle. And he said, put the world together, and once you're done, we can go out and play. So the dad is thinking like he's at least got himself a couple hours, right? So they go on about reading and everything like that. And then he notices like maybe 10 minutes later, the son is like, okay, Dad, I'm done. And even though he's super proud, he's kind of like, what just happened here? And he was like, wow, son, that's really good. How did you do that? And the son says, well, at first it was really hard, but then I dropped a piece on the floor, a piece of paper on the floor, and they had a glass table. And he said, so when I leaned over to go get the piece of paper underneath, I noticed that on the opposite of the page, there was a man. And so then I just put it together, the face of the man. And he realized that once you put the man together, the world will fall in place. And so we share that today because, Randy, something that has been coming up in the conversations that we've been having over the past couple weeks is that life has been lifing.
Life has been life.
And we don't take that lightly, all right? Whatever that means to you. And a lot of times I think we look to go solve the problems of the world or the problems that we see are happening in the world, and we fail to do the work of putting the man together. And Randy, you often say that on the show even, right? You say it with me, but definitely on the show. You talk about putting the man together. So what does that mean to you exactly, and what are your takeaways?
I think for me, right, a lot of people say, man, you're so focused. Like, how did you become so focused? And for me, it was because I kept on getting distracted and I kept on being almost like my worst enemy. And so I was almost being like a deterrent to my own success. And I was getting frustrated about that. Like, why does everyone keep saying I'm so ambitious and yet I'm not seeing that translate into wealth, into money, period. And it was bothering me because it was like, how can one be so ambitious and yet not have the funds to back up that type of energy, right? And the reason why I love the story of put yourself together and the world will fall into place is because when I was getting my real estate license, a story I don't tell often, I used to go and look to talk to random people at the mall. So I would study for 3 hours because I was doing online self-study. So I would study for 3-4 hours a day, and I'd be like, okay, I'm gonna just go talk to random people. And I'd go up to them and I'd be like, hey, like, how do you feel like we could change? I'm talking about random. Like, these people did not know me at all. I'm telling you.
Why were you doing that?
I just felt like it was the easiest way to go meet people. Like, let me just go talk to random people. I'm so serious. Like, I am so serious. And so as I was doing it, I would ask them, I say, hey, how do you feel like we could change the world? And it's an icebreaker. I was like, how do you feel like we could change the world? And people would be like, and I'd be like, oh snap, they're actually thinking about it. And then they'd say their answer, and then they'd be like, well, how do you feel like we could change the world? And then I somehow kept on giving the answer of, well, if I want to change the world around me, I first need to change myself. And so now people go, oh man, you're so focused, you're so diligent, like, oh, you have no distractions. I'm like, well, because I needed to work on myself in order to then impact my economy.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's so true
that's why it's so
though,
powerful.
because like even with you share that, like I remember again, another coach told me I even have this in my home. It's on a plaque and it talks about how, we look to change the world. We look to change the community. We look to change our neighborhoods. We look to change our family. And we get frustrated at all of these points because, oh, nobody gets it. Nobody will do it. Nobody does any of these things, right? And then you get to a point you're like, and you realize, right? Growth is realizing that the only person you can change is yourself. And therefore, by changing yourself, you actually do influence and impact your family, which influences and impact your neighborhood and then your community. And then lo and behold, your city, and good knows what happens next, the world, right? And I believe that if we took more accountability about changing ourselves in those same discipline areas that we talked about last week on episode 203, I think that we would actually make more progress than trying to figure out what's wrong outside of us that, regardless of how often we talk about it, we can't do nothing about.
Yeah.
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 And so how does that show up in your life today? Putting the man together, because is it ever complete, or where are you in that process?
For me, at least, it's a continuous process, right? It's something that's ever evolving, and it doesn't just happen all overnight. And so I think for me, the reason why I structured my day in such a way where I'm like, okay, I need to work out or I need to stretch. I need to make sure that my partner is good. I need to at least have some form of getting closer to God, because that to me will make sure that, hey, I'm continuing to make progress.
Yeah.
How often do I look through my finances in a week? So every area of my life is being improved. So it's, while it's not perfect, it is continuously getting better.
Yeah. And I love that, because this goes back to why we talk about win the morning, win the day, and start with a few habits that then compound, right? Again, like we said last episode, it's probably no such thing as a disciplined person. People aren't born, like whatever it is that you admire. They focused, they showed up, they said, you know what, okay, I'm going to commit to this thing.
Right.
And then once you master it, it's like, okay, I might be able to add on a little bit more. I might be able to add on a little bit more, right? And so the reason why we say all of this is because if you're in the middle of a breakdown, first, let me just say, hold on, because that means you're headed towards your breakthrough, right? I remember once my mom said, you'll get so low that you'll decide it's time to go up.
Yeah, it just goes
I
back
was in
to
a
like,
bad place. I was living in my mom's garage. I remember I was sitting at a dining room table and I was looking at my computer like, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah.
And I was kind of hoping for it's okay, baby. She said, one day you'll get so low that you'll figure it out, right? Because it's, again, we have control, right?
100%.
And
100%.
and that's kind of the tough love that we need at times, to where we stop blaming everything that's happening outside of us, and we take personal ownership of the life that we choose to design for ourselves, whatever that looks like.
I think when you talk about that breakdown to breakthrough, we need to almost normalize the fact that it's like in that lowest moment, there is that point of like realization of like, I need to do something, right? And it's like, you don't have to do everything, but you do got to do something.
Yes.
You're not, it's not good, in my opinion, for us to just stay in that season of like, it'll get better and yet you're not moving.
Yeah.
Like do something. That at least has worked for me tremendously, is that I just need to do something, whether it's improve my finances, whether it's health, wealth, whether it's love, relationships. I need to move. I need to pivot. I need to do something.
Yeah.
to improve my circumstances.
You know what's interesting about that is you said like you don't have to do everything. You do need to do something. I think something that people confuse is a few things that you need to know it all, have it all, and do it all.
Yeah.
And that is not possible. You cannot know everything, right? I was talking to our producer, Randy, and I was saying, you know why I love working with you? I was like, because you're really good at what you do. And even if I decide to go to ChatGPT and YouTube and say, Randy, we could do our own show. I don't know how to get the photos off of my phone. Right? Like, it just annoys me. I'm out of space. And could you imagine me attempting to know it all when my one thing is real estate? Like, I know real estate really well. I can go deep. I can talk about it, right? But then if I step into another lane, like, you know, media or marketing or, you know, building a house, right? That's not my one thing. And so I remind you guys that yes, you need to do something. No, you can't do all things. No, you can't know all things. No, you can't have all things. So it's very important that you define, what do I want to know?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. What do I want to have? What do I choose to have? Right? And what do I choose to know? And I think those are the first steps of being able to, you know, get out of that rut and unlock that mindset. Another thing a good friend told me, she said, you know, to have faith is to create. We are creations of God. And I was like, man, that's pretty powerful, right? Because I think a lot of times when we hit these low spots, we get really
you stop doing. Right?
When I'm going through something, I think that's when it's like, let me pull back. I'm going to stop going out. Let me stay in. Like, you just stop creating, right? And it's the creation that actually gives you the inspiration to be able to start compounding on those habits. Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know? So, Randy, it reminds me of a theory about going from E to P, right? And before we get into it, let me break that down. And it's the idea of going from entrepreneurial to purposeful. So before we break down what that means, what do you believe it means to be an entrepreneur? It's popular, right? People got it on their bios. So what does it mean to be an entrepreneur?
Like you just mentioned, it almost feels or looks like, oh, I'm creating something. Like I'm solving a need in the economy. I'm looking to impact and solve problems for others that I have once experienced within my life. And entrepreneurship is almost sometimes what you make of it. But there's also, like I said, like, it's real work though. It's real work.
It is real work, and that's the P, right? So if E stands for entrepreneurial, then the P stands for purposeful. And Randy, what if I told you that entrepreneurship is doing what you do naturally? And this is why I think a lot of times we hit ceilings, right? So we're going to draw this out for you guys. So imagine, first of all, like, you're an entrepreneur. Like Randy said, you want to save the world. You want to do big things. You got ideas, and you know people that need your help. And so you're like, this is what I'm going to do. And you just hit the ground running and you go out there, right? And so you are doing what you do naturally. Maybe you're a great speaker. Maybe you're just super creative, right? You've got an eye that most people don't have. And that's going to serve you well up to a period of time, right? And then you're going to hit a natural ceiling of achievement. Everybody does this, right? So draw a board, draw a ceiling, right? And so you're going to have a natural ceiling of achievement that you're going to hit. And when that happens, you're going to probably get frustrated, right? So actually, let's go back, right? Y'all know we teach on this show. So we got to break it down, right? So here's what happens when you're an entrepreneur, right? You start off running, you're going really good, strong, right? And then disappointment happens, right? And so it's almost kind of like, I'm super excited. I started a business, boom. Adversity. So you get disappointed, right? That's the first thing that happens. So then you kind of start questioning yourself. We call that resignation, right? You kind of start pulling back from that thing that you were super excited about, right? You're not posting as much. You're not creating as much. You're kind of starting to look and see, maybe there are some
maybe I need to go somewhere else.
maybe I need to do something else.
Another
Maybe I need to
opportunity.
try another thing, right? We call this the shiny object syndrome, right? Because at New Year's, you had this New Year's resolution of all the things that you were going to do. But like I said, you hit that disappointment, you started feeling resignation, you started thinking that they were greener pastures, and then maybe you like shake it up, you go
shake
talk
it
to
off.
somebody,
Yeah, shake it off.
you know, and then you
Get
go back
inspired.
here. But then the cycle continues, right? And then that is your entrepreneurial journey, right? And Randy, people sometimes get stuck there, and it's frustrating. Like, have you ever felt like you kept hitting it against the ceiling?
That was February and March of 2023, where I felt as if that, why does it feel like I'm looking to do insurance, or why does it feel like I'm looking to get a 6-figure gig in IT, and I'm like, what? It's not clicking, or I'm not making as much progress as I would have liked. And I think for me, I did feel like that. Let me start. Maybe I'm making a little bit of progress, and I'm getting distracted again. For me, it always looked like distraction. It didn't look like I couldn't do it. It just looked like, oh, this is a great opportunity. Then I'd be like, this is a greater opportunity. And then I'd be like, but this one I'm still doing, but like this one I can make some more money in. It was just like I'm getting distracted. So for me, that those pivots or that turbulence, adversity, look like me not having enough discernment and honestly attention to detail to say this is not what I need to do right now.
Right. And so in order for us to move through that and break out of this cycle,
Right.
because this is how burnout happens, right? This is why sometimes you see people and like every year they're doing something new.
Right. Like, oh, I thought you were doing that. And that's what it was. I thought you were doing IT. Thought you were doing insurance. Thought you was doing real estate. Distracted.
Right. So you wonder why it's hard for people to call on you, because it's like, well,
What do
baby,
you
I
do?
don't know what you do,
What do you
right?
do? Yeah.
So we have to change the way that we look at it. We have to go from doing what we do naturally,
Right.
and we have to get purposeful about it. And so let's talk about what that looks like, Randy.
So as we were writing in the beginning, and you got to make sure that we're giving you, of course, the lessons. The first one that I needed to do, ironically, was that I needed to focus on what it is that I was going to strive to achieve and to develop. And for me, it did. In the beginning, it looked like skills. In the beginning, it looked like attention. That's what I needed to focus on in order to make the progress I was looking to do within my life.
All right. Absolutely. So you got to focus. You have to get clear. You're going to say, "Oh, okay, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to declare it. I'm going to define it. I'm going to commit to it. This is what I'm going to do."
Right.
But nobody succeeds alone. And a lot of times I think the next step is where most people fail, and that's in finding a model. And this is for anything in life, right? It doesn't matter if we're talking about your business,
Health,
your health,
wealth, love, relationships, there is a model to almost emulate or get, tips from.
And you know what's interesting about that is that, and I think this is actually a state of concern, right? What do they call that? State of emergency?
State of emergency?
State of emergency, right? Most people do not have a model for their life. They are shooting in the wind, right? And again, it's beyond just in your business, right? Even in what you want in life. It's just kind of, oh, I was thinking about this. I'm doing this now. It's just all over the place.
Just going with the wind.
Just going with the wind, right? Somebody says something and you're just, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'm going to do that. Oh, maybe that's what I need to do, right? So you have to ask yourself, well, what are the models that I'm following, right? If you wanted to build a computer, you wouldn't just, I would assume you wouldn't just start sitting at your kitchen table, ordering a bunch of stuff at Amazon. You would find how to build computers for dummies.
Right.
Maybe you would start there. Something.
Yeah, something.
How did you go about finding models?
Ooh, I ask questions. So I'm not gonna lie to you. For me, I ask a lot of questions. I think it does help me understand whatever it is that I'm looking to learn better. And then on top of that too, finding mentors. So I sought out information from people that knew and have done more than me, so that then it can look to speed up my learning curve to then get me to where I wanted to go.
Yeah. So you've got to get out there, right? The truth is, what you are looking for, it does exist. If you don't see it, that means that your environment does not support your goals. And you are responsible for shaping and changing your environment. And so we don't allow excuses on the show, right? One of the pros and cons of when you watch this is that you no longer have the excuse of, I didn't know.
Right.
So if you found yourself in that previous example of hitting a ceiling and getting frustrated and resigning and then going to greener pastures, and then I'm telling you today that what you're missing is going from entrepreneurial to purposeful, right? That's that whole E to P. And purposeful means that you do what comes unnaturally.
Right.
Right? So no, it's not easy to focus. No, it's not easy to go find the models. It's not easy to then build a system around that.
Right.
And I think that looks a lot like how we win our morning. That's our system to being able to win the day.
Right.
And we got that model from our mentor that says, here's what productive people do.
Yeah.
Now the challenge is ego gets in the way and it's like, I don't want to do all that.
Or I
ain't
know
gotta do
better.
all that.
I know more. I know more. He don't know more than me.
Oh, who are you to tell me?
Right.
That's good that works for you. Everybody ain't like you. I mean, the excuses, the limiting beliefs, whatever you want to call it, of why people don't follow the model. And I'm argue that there's a model to life. There are things that you could do to set yourself up for success, which we'll talk about. But you have to make these choices. Nobody can do it. Watching this show won't do it. You have to say, like Randy said, find the people. I guess you can go to the mall and talk to strangers, or you could probably start with people that you know.
No. So what I did was, it was a way for me to get out and just talk to people because
Right.
I was new to Houston. So when I was in the process of getting my license, I was
But
like,
that
let me
is
go talk
still
to
a model, right? So
Yeah.
if we say that success leaves clues,
Yeah.
he's still giving you a model for people that are new to Houston, that are stuck in finding community, people that live in Houston that are stuck in finding community. You got to go outside.
Right.
You got to talk to people that you don't know.
Right.
And maybe just have a question,
That's it.
right?
It's an
How many
icebreaker.
times did you ask that one question?
Oh, probably I'd like to say over 100 times.
So you weren't like trying to switch it up and
No,
come
not
up with a
really.
new fancier question?
No, it's the same question. Cause it was literally out of curiosity. I was like, well, it's random people. They don't know me. I don't know them. I ask them a simple question of, well, could be simple, could be complex. Simply asking though, how do you feel as if that we as humans can change the world?
And I always like to believe that if it's important to you, then it's important to somebody else. That could be, if they think that you're stupid, then maybe you don't want to hang around people that don't think that big.
Most
Right.
people answer the question though. Most people answer the question because it's like, I'm asking you a question. It's just a question. You could say, no, I'm good. I don't
So you
care.
can be up in the Galleria Mall like,
No, I'm
"Excuse me,
serious.
sir."
I was in Katie Mills Mall. And I'd walk up to people like, hey, like,
it.
my name is Randy. I'd be like, hey, my name is Randy.
I'm at the
No, nobody, because you're walking too though. So they're
Oh,
in
okay, I'm
passing.
walking.
They're in passing, and I'm like, hey, my name is Randy. I just have a real quick question for you.
Okay.
Real quick question. And they're like, hey, how do you feel as if we as humans can change the world?
Oh.
And they would literally go like this, body language, and they go like this, and they would think about it. That's it. Be willing to shoot your shot though. It's work for. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be like ultra super curious, and I'm willing to bet on just shooting the shot.
Yeah.
And it either works or it doesn't.
Yeah.
The worst they were gonna say is no. I'm not just asking a question.
Right.
So choose the model that you're gonna follow and systematize it.
But
'cause I
that
was looking
comes to
go,
being
yeah.
unnatural. It's going to be unnatural, right? Because most people aren't doing that, right? Like what he just said, that might literally scare you, right? And yet, it's a model, right? You have to find the model that works for you.
That's it.
And then you have to look at the evidence in people's lives and say, well, Randy seems to be well connected. He seems to have adjusted well in relocating here. So maybe I do need to try something like that.
That's it.
Okay.
It's an option.
And then you remember the bigger goal, right? His goal was not to marry the people that he met, right? He didn't them all. It was just to.
It was just expand the network and like meet new people. And then also, right, if you fear, say, public speaking, I would literally go talk to random people who I may not ever see again and I just ask them one question. And so say, for example, you want to get better at public speaking or interacting with people. How else do you get over that curve if you're not talking to people and you're not actually getting feedback?
Yeah.
So in a very real way, I'm getting feedback every single time
Yeah.
having a conversation with random people.
I love it.
So I would also then define what is it that you're actually looking to become purposeful in, so that then you're able to do the work that'll get you there.
Yeah, and that's why we need you guys to go back and watch episode 202, so that way you can get clear on that, right? See, all of these shows compound, and the reason why we bring you through these lessons, right? Part of the intention of this show is that, you know, we do add to your personal development too, because what good is it for us to teach you how to buy the world and you're broken? You're not going to do it, right?
Yep.
So you do have to define what that looks like. Then you need to build a system around it, so that way you can be consistent, right? And that could look like the accountability, a routine, a calendar, a schedule. And that is what leads to your breakthrough, right? And so when we say sometimes we get stuck, write this down. Which one of these 4 do you need to focus on? Where are you? Where are you in these 4? Okay, because remember, it's not a huge overhaul that you need to do to change your circumstances. Chances are it's something slight and significant. It's the one thing that if you did would make everything else easier or unnecessary. Amen?
Yes, yes, yes. And honestly, be willing to bet on yourself. It will be very uncomfortable in the beginning. And I think that discomfort, in my opinion, has led to those greatest breakthroughs, whether it was lessons that I learned within my life, people that I got to network with, or even the growth that I made in that process of doing what was uncomfortable or unnatural.
Absolutely.
So
So
okay.
we trust that that has been of value. We're going to move right along, because this is a real estate show, and we are real estate advisors specializing in the greater Houston real estate area. So Randy,
Talk to me.
let's talk about the market. We just released August market update. New numbers are in. Of course, we always talk about what's happening and measure it by inventory. Randy, something that I noticed is that the inventory in Houston has now gone up to 4.5 months. It was 4.3 months, and the average sales price is $421,000. So what does that mean? Because sometimes I don't know what you know. So Randy,
Right.
what does that mean? Talk to me like your friends talk to you.
Honestly, it looks like this. If we're saying that there's 4.5 months worth of inventory, that means then there have been numerous homes that have been sitting on the market for up to 4.5 months.
Well, and also that if we continue at the buying cycle that we are now, it would take 4.5 months for us to be completely out, right? And so it's not so much that they're taking 4.5 months to sell. It's just that the absorption rate, right? So if I had, let's just say, for example, I had 10 T-shirts, and I'm averaging like 2 T-shirt sales a day. It would take me 5 days to sell those T-shirts.
Right.
Now, imagine that I had those same T-shirts, but I'm selling 5 T-shirts a day. It would take me 2 days to sell out of those T-shirts.
Right.
And then, of course, if I had 10 T-shirts and nobody was buying them, it would take me 10 days or whatever the case is, right? So that's basically what we're talking about when you have a seller's market, a buyer's market, and a balanced market, right? 2 shirts every day. Okay, that's about balanced, right? That's not bad,
Right.
right? If you selling out, right? Beyonce, she probably got a seller's market type of business, right? She said something about that whiskey, and y'all bought it the same day. Y'all don't even drink whiskey, and y'all went out and buy it, right? That is a product and demand,
Right.
okay? And so same scenario, Chase sold whiskey, and it's still in my closet.
Either way, right? In addition to that, in saying that there are opportunities out here.
Yes.
Because I would say that whether it is a buyer or a seller, I'd be like, well, it depends on your motivation and what you're looking to accomplish.
Absolutely. Now, there's always something, I think, a learning lesson too, right? Because opportunities happen in every market. Absolutely. Warren Buffett even says, when people are hesitant, take action. When people are frenzy, like doing all the things, be hesitant, right? And so right now, it kind of feels like people are afraid to act. And we talked about this, right? We talked about this with the way that rates are, the economy is, people think election is going to make a difference. So they're just kind of sitting on the fence. They're waiting for change to happen, right? But that is actually when you should be making a decision because you have less competition, right? For sellers, one of the things to keep in mind as we talk about inventory is that you don't need to wait. Because what we're telling you is that we are seeing longer days of market, right? And so if you're thinking like, well, I want to get into a new home by January, so I'll just list the house in December, right? It may take you more time, right? The market does not bend to our desires. Right? It's not like, oh, Randy called. He really wants to sell his house. Let me just, right? No. You don't know how much time you're going to need to actually get to where you're going. You need to relocate. So your family has to move.
Right.
It's not even an option. It is not even a want to. You want to start that now because you don't know, right? Average days in the market are about 65, 70 days. And so if we continue to trend in an upward motion, then what happens when it becomes 5 months of inventory, 6 months of inventory,
People
right? What happens in the market is that it happens slowly then suddenly. Right. Shifts happen slowly then suddenly, right? People always want to try to time the market. By the time you think it's time for you to do something, we done already moved into something else.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'll talk to sellers and they're like, well, I'm just going to wait till the spring to sell my home. And I'm like, okay, I can appreciate that. And what happens when your neighbors think the same thing?
Yeah, you guys are all sitting in.
So now if y'all all selling the house, it's 4 of y'all for sale on the street and it's only 2 buyers.
And then also something to consider then, right, for even buyers is that, we hear sometimes, oh, I'm going to wait until after elections to see how it all plays out. Are you the only one having that thought, right? It's just a question, like, are we really the only ones having that thought to say, oh, I'm going to wait until after elections? Yeah. You think that there's not a price to pay. And that's what's also interesting. It's not that it happens like suddenly. It's that, okay, it's been happening and you just may have been like, I'll just wait until after elections. It's cool. And then all of a sudden after elections, you're like, why is there no inventory?
Right.
It may not it may not look like that, but to say that it's like your specific home may actually be on the market right now. And because the idea is, oh, I'm going to wait until after elections to make a decision, it's like, your home is ready for you right now.
It is going to cost you because what we need to know, and by the way, keep in mind that in the history of elections, I think out of the past 9 elections, home prices have increased outside of one, and that was the one around 2008 when we had the whole housing crash, right? So if you're waiting to after the elections to spring, I just want to let you know that subconsciously you're saying, well, I'd prefer to pay more. I ain't say that. That's what the data says.
There's a price to pay. There's a price to pay for indecision. There's a price to pay to make a decision. And honestly, we just have to choose which side of the spectrum we want to be on.
Absolutely.
You need to decide to say that this is the opportunity or opportune time for me to act, or you can say, hey, I'm going to sit in indecision. And then now you may not be the only buyer in the market, and you're saying that this is the home that I've been looking for. And yet it's like, you had your time. There was an opportunity for you to do it. At least for me, we talk about personal, professional development. I look to veer away from any regrets, especially when it's in my control.
Yeah. And I think that, sometimes it comes off like we don't understand. We actually do understand because these are the conversations that we're having with you. These aren't just theoretical and in our mind. We're actually telling you, these are the common objections that we hear people present to us. And we're here to educate you on why that may not be it. We know that you're not going to buy your perfect home. First of all, it doesn't exist, right? But if you could get, 50% of the things that you want in a home for your first home, then you're heading in the right direction. Because remember, the goal is to start building wealth and start gaining equity. As the prices continue to go up, you want to be on the other side of that. increase, right? To where it's like, okay, this is more equity in my back pocket. If you are getting ready to sell that first home, like we talked about last week, and then purchase your second home, well, then now you might have more money to play with. You might be able to get like 60 to 70% of the things that you want in your house.
Right.
Right.
Because more options to choose from. Yeah.
Even then, right? Then you're going to do the same thing. You're going to live there a little bit and you're going to, decide to, okay, I'm going to move my equity into a third home. And that third home may have 70 or 80% of what you're looking for. The challenge, the concern is that most people say, I'm just going to wait till I can get 100%.
Right.
And that just, it just doesn't happen like that. It doesn't, one, perfection doesn't exist.
Right.
Right? It's subjective. But I think it also, the idea of perfection is a distraction.
And I mean, also, it's also like, are you willing to really pay that price?
Yeah.
Like if somebody was to tell you, hey, there's X amount of deals right now, there's X amount of opportunity for you, and if you don't make a decision right now, in a year you may be regretting what you could have done. What would we then say?
Yeah.
Right? Because sometimes we like to say it's only for the big things, but wouldn't also making the decision on the big things also show up in small things? It's like you're making a decision to say you're going to eat this or you're going to indulge in this week, this month, and then you're like, why am I not accomplishing my goals? And it's like, it doesn't have to always be the big thing maybe we're not making the decision on.
It's never the big thing.
It's always the little other things that show up in our life that we're not making a move on.
It's never the big things. Life is not about big things. Life is about small, incremental steps, right? I want to get married. You might need to go outside. I want to have money. You need to open up a savings account. I want to live in X amount of neighborhood. You need to start, right? Like everything starts small, right? I want to be able to invest really well. You need to listen to a podcast, read a book, right? Build a relationship, start a partnership, right? Again, go to the mall and talk to strangers. It starts small. And we laugh at that, right? But then it's like we look at the evidence of people's lives and we think that they just started there. Everybody, who is a great example? Lil Russell. He is on
killing it.
Instagram. I don't even know how he ended up in my world. You guys should follow him. And
it's a blueprint.
I think depending on when you were introduced to him, you may look at him online and be like, man, he got these collaborations with Snoop and all that stuff. But he's very transparent about his journey. And he talks about...
It didn't start like that. It started like when it was just like, hey, we just recorded whatever camera that we had. And I think that's the eat-ish period that we want to avoid. Like we want to be like, I don't want to get the $150,000, $200,000 townhouse. I want the $450 4-bedroom, 3-bath. And it's like, you will get there. Let's maybe start with the 2-2 house.
Yeah.
And then, of course, go and level up. It's okay. Because it's like, who are we comparing ourselves to?
Who are you comparing yourself to? Unless it's your future self.
Exactly.
And something my sister once said is, don't be afraid to be seen trying. All right? Okay, yeah, maybe people, they just bought this little townhouse, this rinky-dink. My mom shared it on the story, right? Their first home, it was half of a duplex. It wasn't even a duplex. It was half of a duplex over in Bel Air area, right? And she didn't necessarily love it, but today she has retired in a bungalow on the beach. She absolutely loves that.
Right.
Now imagine if she waited until she was 60 to do that, and all the missed opportunities that occur along the way, And so you can't be afraid to be seen trying. You definitely need to shoot your shot, take that step, and then you need to start where you are. And so right now, what we're seeing in the market, you guys may have recently heard about it, the Federal Reserve just had a rate reduction, okay? And here's what we need to know about this, right? And encourage you guys to subscribe, because we're gonna talk about this more next week. We're gonna bring back in one of our lenders so we can have a really full conversation. However, like we have always said, when people are waiting for rates to drop, when they do drop, that means that there's more competition. And so after that happened, we saw a 14% increase in mortgage applications.
Man.
What does that mean?
It means that the people who were on the fence, the people who are saying that oh man, I'm gonna wait till next year. They're actually looking to say, I may just close before Christmas.
Yes.
So it's like they're at least seeing this is where I'm at financially, and where does that put me within the market to then be able to maybe actually go get my dream house, considering there's 4.5 months worth of inventory.
Yeah, and I would say that if you are in this real estate process, number one, call us. We are real people. We are your real estate advisors. So I encourage you guys to send a message, follow us, subscribe, schedule a strategy session. However, there's a good chance with that rate drop. Now, first, let me be very clear. The Fed rate drop does not directly correlate to mortgage rate drops.
It trickles in.
Those are two different things, right? And however, it does influence it, right? And so we still want you to go ahead and make a decision, because we know that change is gonna come. Change is gonna come, but we don't want you to wait on that, because Randy, while you can refinance your interest rate, you cannot renegotiate your principal. Okay? So if you wait for the rates to drop like everybody else, and then as a result, because even though the market is increasing, so is the sales price. Like I said, I just told you the average sales price in Houston is $421,000. That doesn't mean you need $421,000. We have a very beautiful luxury market. So that, remember, average is the sum of all divided. And yet, if you wait and prices continue to incrementally increase, then you're paying more. Whereas if you make a decision to close by Christmas, and let's just say that rates do drop continually, right? Well, you can always go back and then you can refinance that, And so what we don't want you to do is get stuck in indecision because somebody told you that
right now is not the time. Right?
Yeah. So, Randy, I did a poll and I asked the people if you had to choose one thing to focus on to finish this year strong, what would it be? And my options were, number one, increasing your income, building your credit, paying down debt, or seeking advice and counsel. Majority of the people said increasing their income. And it was kind of spread up, but the majority of people said increasing their income. And that's when I realized, Randy, that we don't have we have all of those, right? All of those go into you being able to buy a home. However, more than that, we've got a money conversation that we need to have.
Yeah.
And I think that
come to Jesus moment with the finances.
We need to have a come to Jesus moment about our finances, right? And so what we're going to do is introduce you guys some homework. We always give you guys homework. And so we want to make sure that we are giving you tangible things to focus on, right? Wherever you fell in that poll, then what we want to do is give you 7 strategic steps to building wealth. Okay, we're going to call it the TCREG plan.
The TCREG plan.
All right, awesome. So do me a favor, Randy, go ahead and write this down for the people, because what we're going to do is kind of give you a checklist to work through. Now, do not wait until you complete all 7 steps to call us, right? It's very important that we go ahead and start the conversation now so we can provide you with that accountability that we always talk about. So number 1, we guys want you to build an opportunity fund. How many of you guys can relate to something coming up that you want to take advantage of, that you just don't have it? And in any sense of the word, if you did, you would, but you don't, so you can't. So the people like to say, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And here's what I know. Without this $1,000 opportunity fund, it makes pain even more painful.
Let me tell you something. Life be lifing. He said life be lifing. Life be lifing if you got a little bit of cash to take care of those emergencies. I'm telling you.
It's a little bit different. If you've ever gotten a flat tire and gone to
insurance said they weren't going to cover it,
and a tire company, and you don't have, tires cost $200
a piece, depending on your car.
A piece, depending on your car.
Depending on your car.
Right? having that opportunity can take a major inconvenience or a major crisis to a small inconvenience.
Right.
So we got to get you. It's just not a negotiable, right? I'm not even going to lower the number. You need to save $1,000, especially if you're looking to buy a house. Like, we're not going to have that conversation about how you can buy a house with no money. I think it's irresponsible and it's not wise, and we would be delusional to send you off into the wild thinking that. So,
and what that looks like too is what we talked about within the last episode. To get to this $1,000 is that 10%, or you can do 70-30, or you can do, some people do, whether it's 40-30-30. Split it up the way that works for you and your circumstances, right? We understand that for some they say $1,000 is impossible. However, if you say that you're making, whether it's $4,000, say a month in total, how can you look to put away 10% of that's $400?
yeah.
Even if you can't even do the $400, even if you did $300 or $200 a month, after 5 months you have $1,000.
Yeah. You have to start somewhere, right? We know that. Now, here's the other thing, right? This is just the start, right? We don't say, okay, I got $1,000, my pocket's burning, let me go buy a camera. Let me go buy an iPhone 16. Mm-hmm. No, that's just the beginning. This is your opportunity fund. So we want you to grow that into 3 to 6 months. So let's just say living expenses, 3 to 6 months of living expenses. So let's just say that because you're a wealth builder, right? You're tracking your finances. Let's just say it costs you $4,000 a month to live. 3 to 6 months of that would be what? $12,000, $12,000 to $24,000 in your savings account. Do you believe that you are capable of that? Of course you do, right? Because we're magic. So we need you to, number one, start building that opportunity fund. Number two, we want you to pay off your credit cards, and we want you to start with your high interest debt first, and then we want you to reallocate those payments somewhere else. So I'll give you guys an example. If credit card A, you need to read your statements to know the answers to this. If credit card A, you both have a $2,000 balance, and credit card A is charging you 30%, and credit card B is charging you 18%, which credit card do you need to pay off? Well, to our plan, we're saying pay off the 30% credit card because that is going to compound against you, right? So you're doing a minimum payment of $50 and then they charge you $75 in interest.
I'm telling you, those interest payments are something else.
You hustling backwards. You can't get nowhere doing that, right? And so we need you to do that. And focus on your non-mortgage debt, right? So when we're talking about paying off debt, we're not talking about the house. We're talking about your credit cards, car note. If I was to prioritize it, Randy, I would probably go credit cards first, then my car note, then my student loans. But Jesus forgave those, so whatever.
Something like that.
Something like that, but you do need to have a plan for it, right? But I kind of look at it like, what's most realistic for me to pay, and what is eating up my expenses the most, right? So when we say we need to increase our income, a lot of times that means we need to decrease our outgoing expenses. What would it look like if you didn't have credit card bills or a car note?
Cash flow would be metro booming.
Right? So now all of a sudden it's like, okay, I can breathe a little bit more, right? I can add to my opportunity fund a little bit more, right? So that's number 2. Number 3, Randy, we want you to still focus on increasing your gross income. So this is where your hustles come in, right? This is where you want to be able to start diversifying, and so that could mean real estate investments. And Randy, we talked about this. We talked about this idea. We saw an article that Gen Z is looking at real estate a lot differently. They're talking about different ways to go into home ownership just because of the cost of living. And something that they talked about was like co-ownership, or even house hacking. We're starting to see partnering up with people that maybe they have the income and you got the cash, however you want to work it, right? But what can you do to increase your income?
Let me tell you something. This is what I did. Anytime that I have looked to increase my income, I looked at what certifications could I get. It's not maybe the biggest way to differ yourself in the market. However, I would say it is a great benefit. Also, look at the skills that you have developed up until the point in time of whatever job you're looking to get. So if you have to go back to that resume and be like, look, not only do I have this certification, I've also worked here. This is a high class type of place. Not everyone can work here, and I'm using it to my benefit to get into the next position, right? And some people I've even seen, they join the military, go and do IT in the military, come out the military. Now they're either getting government contracts to do the same thing that they were doing in the military, or get a six-figure plus job.
Absolutely.
Now, a lot of people may not want to do that. However, look, if we're talking about barrier of entry, I would say you serve 3 years in the military, and that's a benefit. It's not the only way. However, it's one of the ways that I've seen has worked tremendously well for some people.
Yeah, and this is again why when we talked about being purposeful, it's not going to feel comfortable, right?
At all.
Even if we're talking about paying off your credit cards, we're going into the holiday season, those side hustles, it could look like a rideshare program, it could look like a part-time job, it could look like you going through your home and selling things that you don't need, right? And figuring out where to get that cash from. Like you gotta think, right? What you're doing, if it's not working, is not going to work.
It's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut
Right?
it.
So you got to figure out a way to do that. Next, we want you to focus on investing 15% in like for your retirement. So this is where your IRA, your stock accounts, appreciating assets, even real estate. But we want you to start doing that because again, we know that it compounds and it may not make sense right now. When you look up, you'll be wealthy, right? 20, 30, 40 years, you'll look at it and be like, man, I was continuously adding 15% into this stock account and look how it's grown. I think sometimes the challenge is you only want to buy stock when the market takes off.
Right. And I think, honestly, look, I'm not a stock advisor. However, what I would do is that I used to do it's called dollar cost averaging. So I would maybe invest $10, $15 a day. And what I would do is I would let that continue to build in one or two, say it's stocks or whatever the case is, and I would let it accumulate over time. And then you're like, oh, snap, I got a whole share or I got a few shares. And while maybe it's not that much money, if one share doubles in value, say it was $100, now you got $200. You take out $50 of it, you still have $150 still appreciating on your behalf.
Absolutely. So in the same way that we said that success happens slowly then suddenly,
right?
Don't wait until you got $60,000 to buy Bitcoin. Just buy it incrementally. Buy what you can and have a plan so it's not emotional.
And we're not, and we're also not advising that you say go and invest into Bitcoin. We're just saying that it's an option. It's not the option. It's a option.
And you might just want to read about that, right? Because we are not stock advisors. We are not anything that's going to make you say, TCREG told me to do it, and now you want to sue me. So you need to do your research and be very smart
do your
about
due
that.
diligence.
Do your due diligence.
And
Number 5, we want you to build and maintain excellent credit. You got to start paying your bills. You got to pay them on time. So we want to make sure that, I know that a lot of people will tell you a lot of different things about what you do and don't need in order to be able to qualify for a house. However, since we believe in teaching highest and best, let's go ahead and shoot a target to a minimum credit score of 640. Okay? Just like the $1,000 opportunity fund, you start there, okay, then that credit score, we start here. So if you do not have that, then one of the first steps people can take, Randy, is to sign up for monitoring service.
That helps tremendously. Experian is a great option. And sometimes too, the banks, whoever you bank with, also has, you just go in there to see what's my free credit score. It's not a hard inquiry, it just helps.
Yeah, you gotta inspect what you expect, right? And so
you gotta hold it accountable too.
Nothing happens that's not paid attention to, right? Oh my gosh, I was talking to my fan. I got these plants in my house. They're all dead, right? She's like, what happened? I was like, I just forgot about them, right? Nothing can live if you don't pay attention to it. So if you want to build your credits, you have to monitor your credit. You got to figure out what are the things that are impacting it, whether that's debt, late payments, over usage on your credit card, and get to it. You need to focus on that. All right. And then we want you to build a real estate investment plan. Now, this is when you're going to want to call in your strategic partners like TCREG, speak with lenders, financial advisors, and develop and say, okay, so what do I actually want? you know what? You're right, Chase. I do want to live in Meridiana. I do want to live in Pomona. I do want to live in Carlton Estates. I do want to live in the Woodlands. Okay, that's great. I do want to have 25 doors by the time I retire. So that way I can have cash flow coming in and I'm not relying on Social Security. We don't have pensions. Most people I know don't have a pension coming up, right? And so those investment properties are going to play a role into you being able to have the cash flow you need to survive your golden years. So create a real estate investment plan. A lot of smart people that I know, Randy, they buy a house every 2 years. I know one. I had one mentor. He bought a house every 2 years, and he gave away the 10th to a single mom.
That's different.
I always tell people,
That's
money
so
is
lovely.
good for the good it can do.
Right.
Most people are philanthropic at nature, but
You gotta have.
they're
You gotta have
limited. They don't have the opportunity to do it, right? But what would it look like? What would your legacy look like if, you get ready to retire and you can see 5 single moms that are like, man,
Yeah.
Randy blessed me with this house.
Amen.
Do the work. Do the work. Awesome. And then number 7, your plan to 7 steps to strategically build wealth is to implement what we like to call the FIRE plan, which is financial independence and retire early. And so it goes back to this idea of building your passive income through real estate investments and business ownerships. And this is where your strategic partnerships are going to come in. And so again, like we talked about in regards to building the world around you, building your networks out, who are those people that you can seriously make business decisions and deals and plays with, right? If nobody succeeds alone, then these 7 steps, it could be
Hard.
a lot to
Yeah.
swallow, right? But you're gonna need partnerships. And so in order for us to be able to get you guys here, then just keep in mind, you need to start here. So Randy, what do you think about that?
I think collaboration is always important. I think that if anything, do it with a cohort if you have to. Like hold these dollars that you're earning accountable. I remember when I was 20, I used to say, like, get the bag, save the bag, so that you can invest the bag. Like
Yes.
it has to make sense.
Come on,
Like
bag.
you
Say
gotta,
it again. Say it again. Go.
You gotta
do it.
get the bag,
Get the
save
bag,
the bag,
save the
and
bag,
invest the bag.
Invest the bag.
You have to. It's a process though, and let me actually not say you have to. That's if you want to. That's if you're saying that this is something that you desire. I know that for me, I do not want to work forever, and I know that for me, I have certain goals and aspirations that require me to be financially wealthy.
Yeah. You know what?
Free.
I love it. I especially love for me, as for me in my house, as for my family and our legacy, this is what I want. And you have to decide what you want. It is your assignment. Life is not a group project, and nobody is coming to save you, right? And so earlier in the show, we talked about how trying to fix the world or expect the world to change your independent situation is not wise. It's not a strategic move, right? Because we know that stuff happens in spite of us. But what we can control is our personal economy and the decisions that we make to live a life by design.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes it will be hard. Like you were doing outstanding work and life was just lifing. Like say your employer just felt like, you know what? You're done. You don't work here no more.
Yeah.
And now you just got to figure it out. And I'm only saying that because it happened to me. Like truly, you talking about life is lifing. I remember in 2021 of February, I got fired from the job that I moved from Houston, Texas to Alabama for. I was there for maybe 4 months and they fired me. They said that as of today, you've been terminated off the contract effective immediately. That was my last day there. I moved to Alabama for that job and they let me go.
Yeah.
And in that moment, I had to decide, what am I going to do? What is it going to look like? And where do I want to be?
Yeah.
And in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, in that economy at that time, got another job offer. Now it may look like you have to submit 2 times the amount of resumes to get the job that you want.
You got to get uncomfortable. You just have to get uncomfortable. And so we want to leave you guys with this. Now, we definitely going to give you guys some homework. You've already written down the 7 steps to building strategic wealth. We call it the TCREG plan. Your homework is to review your personal budget. We want to make sure that you have clarity about your own numbers. And then also, we invite you guys to schedule a strategy session with us so that we can do this with you. Randy, we got a challenge. We got a challenge.
What's the challenge? Lay it on them, Chase.
We have a challenge to help 15 families close by Christmas.
Amen.
And what that means is that we are looking to, number one, have 60 conversations with people like you that are ready to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. It's very easy. All you have to do is schedule a strategy session. However, if you're not in the market to buy a home and you're just saying like, Chase, it's just not for me, we're asking that you give 2 referrals. And if this show has blessed you, to leave us a review. And Randy, when they do that, guess what?
What?
We're going to invite you to a ball. But we're not going to get into that. We're not going to talk about that because we don't want you to be distracted. We just want you to know that the Close by Christmas Challenge is on. It's popping. 15 families by December 25th. Who do you know that we should know so that we can get them closer to home? And then we want you guys to subscribe and come back next week.
Yeah, and feel free to comment below any questions that you do have. We'll be sure to answer them. And it's going to be okay. You are going to be okay. And those trials of maturity, those trials lead to then maturity, and it's a testing of our faith, which then builds endurance. And
there's a scripture about that.
It is. It's 1 James verse 2-4. Trials of maturity.
Yeah, and
it's beautiful.
And you think about that when you do overcome that trial, you're going to be able to bless somebody else because you're going to be able to specifically speak from experience on how you did and what got you through. So we thank you guys for tuning in. You guys show up every week, and we appreciate that. We want to let you know that we hear you and that we see you and that you are not alone in this thing. If you guys have questions or want us to talk about something new, go ahead and leave a comment, and we'll see you next week.
Let's get it.
All right. Bye, you guys.